on the Sefer Ben Ish Chai. It's a beautiful book, or Sefer Halacha, very simple Hebrew again, beautifully laid out by Parsha. And Ben Ish Chai was a Gaon also in his own right. Rav Ovadia also was born in Iraq, and he should by right follow the Ben Ish Chai, but he grew up in Yerushalayim in a sort of literature Sephardi yeshiva, if such a thing exists. And he had a different psak, a different derech. And his view was, he said something called Hachzira Tara Yoshna, to return the crown to its former glory. I think for him that really meant two things. First and foremost, it meant that in Eretz Yisrael, the Maradat, right, the Balabait, as it were, of Eretz Yisrael was always the Mechaber Shulchan Aruch. That's what he held. He lived in Eretz Yisrael, and Rav Ovadia held that was the halacha of Eretz Yisrael, and that was the kovea. And if you were Ashkenazi, then he called Yotzim Biyad Ramah. They would go out with the hand of the Ramah, that they would keep the Ramah's halacha. But otherwise, if you were Sephardi, even if you kept the Ben Ish Chai, all these years, when you come back to Eretz Yisrael, you live in Eretz Yisrael, you're in the home of the Shulchan Aruch, you should keep the halacha of the Shulchan Aruch. And he claimed on the Ben Ish Chai, the Ben Ish Chai was chasda in milei, that he was a chassid in the sense that he was machmir. Often the Ben Ish Chai took the chumras of the Ramah, and often the Ben Ish Chai took the chumras of the Arizal, of the Kabbalah, against Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch was very much posek al pi pshat, the Rambam, the Rif from Rosh, based on the Gemara and the Rishonim. It wasn't really into Kabbalah so much, and in his psak, and the Arizal certainly was, and the Ben Ish Chai took a lot of the chumras of the Arizal against Shulchan Aruch. And Rav Ovadia said, no, it's not right. Which is why Rav Ovadia has a reputation, rightly so. He wasn't afraid to call himself a Kafta Teradif. He claimed that the Chazal say the power of a kula, the power of being lenient, is stronger. Why? Because everyone can say something's asa. It's easy to say I don't want to eat a certain hachsha, whatever. It's easy to say you don't want to do a certain thing, but to be maker, you have to be. It's kafta terror. If it's legitimate, if it's warranted, and you can prove it, and you have the broad enough shoulders that Rav Ovadia certainly did, you can do that. The other thing he meant by that was really the Sephardim in Eretz Yisrael. Many years ago, when the state was first established, there was the Aguda, right? So the Ashkenazi rabbinate was much stronger than even though the Sephardim had lived for many years in Eretz Yisrael, and there were many rabbis who tried to enforce a one psak approach in Eretz Yisrael, and they tried to enforce. There would be no yibum, for example. There would be certain things that everyone would do, but it was very much an Ashkenazi rabbinate. And there were no, I think at that time, I don't want to say no, but there was a weakness, comparatively speaking, I think, in terms of the influence of the rabbinates of the Sephardim and Ashkenazim. Rav Ovadia grew up in this environment, and he certainly, when he created Shas, and when he became such a powerful force and created this incredible education system, not that there was nothing before, but I think he certainly had a certain, I'm not trying to have a go at the people who came before him, but he certainly had a tremendous influence. And certainly when I got to yeshiva, and I'd grown up with the Ben Ish Chai, and I didn't, the Ben Ish Chai is beautifully written, but it doesn't give you, it's not lots of footnotes. There isn't a huge amount of makorot sitting, behind. He obviously learnt it, but he didn't write it in the Ben Ish Chai. So if you really wanted to learn the halacha down to where you came out, you didn't have the Mishnah Berurah necessarily. There was no Moshe Feinstein. There weren't as many accessible tshuvas of modern day poskim of Sephardim, and Rav Ovadia certainly provided that. He's written extensively on many things. Certainly with regards to Ashkenazim, just one view of his. Lotit Godadu is the halacha that we're not allowed to make different splits in Am Yisrael. He took the view that when it came to Sephardim and Ashkenazim, Lotit Godadu didn't apply, just like it didn't apply to Shammai and Hillel. They had totally different. Everyone accepted that Shammai and Hillel had different schools of thought in halacha. They lived together. They had different psak. For some, according to Hillel, according to Shammai, some of the people walking around in Hillel's community were mamzerim, and vice versa. And yet they didn't prevent each other from intermarriage. They told each other, that family over there is full of mamzerim for you. You shouldn't marry that. It's an incredible thing. They had respect for each other to that point that they warned each other of that without getting upset with one another. His derech hapsak. Just a point on that, the Ashkenazim, I read this, the Ben Ish Chai says this, that the Ashkenazim, they learn Gemara, Rishonim, and then they paskin. And as far as them, apparently the tradition is that they gather all the psakim, and then they conclude. So they gather all the achron and they list them off. And Rav Ovadia, in his chuvas, he does this, he lists off all the psakim, and then he paskins like that. And that's perhaps why the Ashkenazim were more cautious about publishing Sfarim from an earlier age, because since they're making more judgmental calls on their psak, because they're just learning Gemara, Rishonim, and they're making the halacha, so maybe they're more cautious about making a call. He's written extensively Chavei Dat. There's like a beautiful section. There's 6 volumes. The Viat Chen is where and why he argues on the Mishnah Berurah in Hilchot Shabbat. Halichot Olam is where and why he argues with the Ben Ish Chai. Yabi Omer, also a stunning set, and for me, comprehensive, clear, beautiful makorot. People say he was a Sephardi Gadol. I have to say, like, there's such a thing. His halacha, he often quotes all the Ashkenazi poskim. He brings all the Gemaras and the Rishonim. It's a Shulchan Aruch. It's a late table of halacha. for anyone to read, and it's stunning. 800,000 people at his funeral. It's the largest event in Israeli history. It sort of kind of speaks for itself. Just coming on some of his halachot, briefly. He's known as a makil. Is he a makil? Who knows? He had certain chumras. He didn't like shaitels. Okay, he didn't like shaitels. So none of the Sephardi Rishonim allowed shaitels. Didn't allow it. Fortunately for us, there are other Sephardi poskim who allow shaitels, or we'd all be in trouble. Certainly, I would be in trouble. He has other psakim, but fish and milk. The Shulchan Aruch says you can't eat fish and milk together. Dagim b'chalab. Written in Shulchan Aruch. Okay, the Ramah doesn't argue. So why do you all have smoked salmon and cream cheese sandwiches? Because the Shach and the Taz both say it's a Taz Sofrim in the Mechaba. It's a mistake. It meant to say, not that the Mechaba made a mistake, but that when it was written down after generations, it was a mistake developed in the Safrut, in the writings of the Shulchan Aruch, and it was meant to say meat and fish. Meat and fish, we all know, is a sakana. The Gemara says you can't eat meat and fish together. None of us eat meat and fish together, and yet it's not brought as a. It's not learned out from the Torah. It's not like lots of Ashel Gudi B'Chalei. It's a halacha. It's a sakana. So the Ashkenazim take on Shach and the Taz. Don't worry about it. Rav Ovadia says, based on Shulchan Aruch, you shouldn't have fish and milk together. Many Sephardi poskim, the Chidah says, don't worry about it. It was a mistake. He goes with a mistake view. Don't worry about it. Rav Ovadia has a chumrah here. He wants to go like the Shulchan Aruch against the Mekilim. For many, many years, he was machmer on Eruvin. For many years, he said you shouldn't spar them. She's an Eruv. The Eruvin psak is that everyone agrees that you can't build an Eruv around the Rosh Hashanah D'Oraita. If there's a public domain on a biblical level, you can't build an Eruv. It's physically impossible to build, halachically impossible to build an Eruv around it. The question is, what constitutes a Rosh Hashanah D'Oraita? Do you need 600,000 people to walk in that area, or is it enough just to have the road wide enough and go through the whole city? If a road's 60 numbers wide and it goes through the whole city, that's a Rosh Hashanah D'Oraita. So in big cities, we have this question. There might be streets in Manhattan, in London, in Sydney, that are wide enough to go through the city, and 60 numbers wide, they go through the city, they're straight. So that could be Rosh Hashanah according to the more strict opinion, in which case you wouldn't be able to build an Eruv. Some views hold, no, some of the Rishonim saying it has to be like Diglei Midbar, it has to be like the Jews when they were in the desert. There were 600,000 people there. That's what classifies as Rosh Hashanah. And there are very few roads in the world that will carry 600,000 people in any given day. And Rav Ovadia for many years said, no, the Sephardim always like the Shulchan Aruch, you shouldn't use an Eruv in a big city because that is a psak of the Shulchan Aruch. Many years later, when you paskin for 60 years at the highest level, you can change your mind every now and again. And he wrote a tshuva in Yabiyah Omer Chelek Tet, where he said, you know what, maybe there are grounds to permit, maybe there are views in the Shulchan